As you can see, Monsanto is the topic I have chosen for my assignment. I have chosen this topic because I feel that it is very important for society to know about what is going on in terms of our food and what we're eating. I am not against Monsanto, but personally, I would like to know what is in our food. I think GMO foods are in some way positive because you create more quantity of food in a smaller land area, so we're sustaining our land. In saying this, the world already has enough food to supply everyone. But unfortunately, it is not distributed evenly. Therefore, companies like Monsanto must step in and make a difference.
Genetically engineered crops in agriculture, a worldwide experiment on people, animals, and nature. Cultivation of genetically engineered crops like soy, maize, cotton, or canola have far-reaching consequences. 90% of genetically engineered crops belong to the corporate agricultural group Monsanto. The rest are owned by Syngenta, DuPont, Bayer, and others. Genetic manipulation of crops can have uncontrollable consequences. The function of genomes is only partially understood, but foreign genes are still introduced into crops. These genetically engineered crops are widely cultivated outdoors, where they cannot be controlled. Currently, 90% of GE cultivation occurs in the Americas, particularly in the USA, Argentina, Brazil, and Canada. It seems researchers have forgotten that genetically engineered crops once outside can no longer be controlled like they could in the lab. GE crops can self-replicate and pass on their new characteristics to neighboring crops, penetrating the fields of farmers who want to cultivate their crops without genetic engineering. Adverts from the genetic engineering lobby claim genetically engineered crops produce higher yields, but this marketing mantra is a complete hoax. It has been shown that crop yields for GE crops are no higher than normal crops, but farmers must buy more expensive patented genetically engineered seeds each year. This forces them to become dependent on corporate giants. But that's not all. Genetic engineering giants also produce pesticides and herbicides. There are two characteristic traits of genetically engineered crops. They are either resistant to herbicides, in which case the genetic engineering company itself produces the suitable herbicide, or the genetically engineered crop emits an insecticide. Whether or not the crops are resistant to weed killer or give off poisonous gases, not only weeds or pests are eliminated, other beneficial field growth and some living creatures are killed as well. But nature adapts, so pests and weeds develop resistance to pesticides. And that means that increasing amounts of stronger pesticides will be used. Especially grave consequences are observed in this respect in monocultures. For example, in South America, rainforests and other natural landscapes are destroyed every day to make room for genetically engineered monocultures and pasture. At the same time, the soil and groundwater are poisoned. On top of that, the genetic engineering lobby claims genetically engineered crops can help to reduce world hunger. Genetic engineering is not the answer. There is enough food on Earth. The problem is that it's not distributed fairly. But the fact is that most genetically engineered crops find their way into the livestock chain, so they end up as meat or dairy products in supermarkets. Along with all the destructive effects on the environment, one last awkward question remains. How do genetically engineered crops affect humans and animals? The answer is, no one knows. Therefore, it's important for you to carefully consider which products you buy. Get informed and get involved, because our world is not a testing ground.
I will now do some background information on the company Monsanto. Monsanto was founded in St. Louis, Missouri in 1901 by John Francis Queeny. The company's first product was an artificial sweetener called saccharin. With the saccharin that they produced, they sold it to the Coca-Cola company. Later on, Monsanto would go and produce other products such as vanillin and aspirin. In 1928, Queenie's son, Edgar Monsanto, took over the company. Also in the 20s, Monsanto expanded into basic industrial chemicals like sulfuric acid. In the 40s, Monsanto became a lead manufacturer of plastics, including polyester and synthetic fibers. Also at this time, Monsanto was producing herbicides. Agent Orange, most recognized by the Vietnam War, was actually produced by the Monsanto company. Not only that, but Monsanto was a part of the Manhattan Project, which saw the first development of nuclear weapons. Now in the 70s, Monsanto began focusing on electronics. Its main market was now electronics. In 1982, Monsanto scientists became the first to genetically modify a plant cell. By the end of the century, Monsanto transitioned from chemical giant to biotechnology. A huge problem with the Monsanto company is that they claim to own every crop that is produced by their seeds. As you can see in this poster, it says, "No food shall be grown that we don't own." Therefore, Monsanto technically owns every genetically modified crop that was produced by their company. A similar message is shown in the second poster. It says, "Control the food supply and you control the people." This is true because all humans depend on food and we need it for our survival. Okay, I did a pros and cons table that I thought of. And so for my pros, I put more nutritious food. And this is true because you're mixing genes and you're getting, let's say you're adding fish genes to tomatoes, you're increasing the protein in the tomatoes. The second one I have down is increased growth rate. This is also true. Genetically modified foods grow faster. The third is resistance. GMO foods are resistant to colder weather, insects, animals, and whatever you can add to the DNA. The fourth is better taste. Due to the addition of more components, you tend to get a better taste out of your food. A recent survey was done by, I believe, Brown University. And the survey showed that between a GMO tomato and a regular tomato, organic, people actually preferred the GMO tomatoes taste better than the organic tomatoes taste. On the other side of the table, for the cons, I have don't know side effects. We don't really know the side effects of GMOs. Some say allergies or allergens is a big deal with them. For the second one, I have down frankenfood. So this means we're eating food that has multiple components. So tomatoes with fish, bananas with like rat genes and whatnot, whatever. The third one I have down is environmental impact. And so the crops and genes can't be maintained in the outdoors. So there's cross breeding between GMO crops and normal crops. Therefore, the GMOs are technically getting into every crop. The fourth I have on my list is companies control food. So companies like Monsanto technically control all GMO food, which is not good for society. when they control the food, they control the prices of the food so they can either drive it up or drive it down. The fifth I have is tampering with nature. We really shouldn't be doing this to our crops because it wasn't meant to be. We should just let the crops grow as they should, not tamper with them. We don't know what disaster we could create. We could create a giant disease which wipes out half of our crops across the world or whatnot, but we just shouldn't be tampering with nature. The sixth one I have on my list is no labeling on products in some countries. So in some countries on the products it does not declare if it's a GMO or not, so us consumers will never know and we won't know any better. And lastly, it gets into animals and livestock. So as you saw in the video, GMOs can actually go into us humans and cows, so it's in our meat, it's everywhere practically, and this is bad because we don't know the side effects and they could be positive or negative side effects.